Welcome to Bridging the Education Gap, the podcast where parents, teachers, and education leaders come together to share insights, stories, and strategies that connect learning at home and in school. Whether you're a parent navigating homework struggles, a teacher fostering classroom breakthroughs, or an education leader seeking innovative solutions, this is your space to learn, grow, and collaborate. Each week, we dive into real conversations about education, from tackling pain points to celebrating success stories, all with one goal: to bridge the gap and empower every child's learning journey. I'm your host, Jessica Shelley. Let's get started. In this episode, we're diving deep into the transformative journey of Jaime, a passionate advocate for parental involvement in education. As the landscape of education continues to evolve, one thing remains clear: the importance of parental involvement has never been greater. In this conversation, Jaime will share her personal experience navigating this shift and the powerful impact of parents in ensuring their child's educational success. So let's get started. Jaime, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so to kick things off, can you share a little bit more about your background and how you became really passionate about getting parents involved in their child's education?
Sure. So my journey started, 26 years ago in education. I started as actually substitute teacher and then moved into some more kind of support roles. So as an aide, I've done it all: grade book clerk, I've done tech support, all of those things while I went to school at night to become a classroom teacher and then later a principal. And, this is just where I saw firsthand the difference it made when families were truly engaged in their child's learning. But as a parent myself, all of that took on a whole new level of meaning, right? So I understood immediately how overwhelming it could feel from the other side, trying to support your child while juggling work, home, school communication. So that dual perspective, I think, not only helped me as a parent, but it kind of became a bridge for my own child, but for families that I was working with in education and now in ed tech. So all of that came about, the passion for creating ways for parents to feel empowered and not intimidated when it comes to supporting their child's education.
Empowered, not intimidated, right? Like it's like the right amount of balance versus overload of information about your child. A study by the National PTA found that 92% of parents believe that when schools and families can actually work together, that children are more likely to succeed academically. I think that that's echoed similarly from teachers, where there's like this bridge of like, we both know we want to be together, but how do we do that in a way that works for both of us? So I think there's this universal understanding really that parental is critical and crucial for a child's success. But what specific benefits have you noticed in your own child's academic progress due to your involvement, or maybe even that from like your time as a classroom teacher?
Sure. So I feel like the biggest benefit is confidence, really, both academically and socially. So when kids know that their parents are present and engaged, they show up different, right? So a little background about me. Well, a ton of my family are in education, but my immediate family, my dad was a teacher, coach turned principal and superintendent. My mom was a special ed teacher turned counselor. I have two sisters. One worked her way up to superintendent, the other is an assistant principal, right? I followed suit, teacher. So these are things that we did all the time. So it was common for me to have somebody always in my business as a kid, and knowing before I even got home, they knew if I failed a test, right, in the classroom that day. But for my kids, just knowing there's some pride from a kid, no matter how old they are, when they get accolades for work that they've done and time that they've put in. And if they know that somebody else is going to see and somebody's going to support, somebody's involved, I think they do just show up different, right? They're engaged in what they're doing. For my own children, I have three boys. I feel like they took ownership of their learning. So they asked more questions. And of course, being just familiar with teachers, right? They weren't intimidated. They felt like that safe space, taking academic risks, being involved, answering questions, like raising their hand, right? These are things that I feel like they did when they know I'm there to back them up, right? I'm there to support them. When they get home, I'm going to check, make sure that they're doing their stuff. And if they don't, I'm going to find a way to get them to the point that they need to be. So I feel like it built stronger relationships between home and school. Teachers could see me as a partner, not just as a parent asking for grades, right? And so if I felt that way as a parent, I wanted the parents I was supporting to feel the same way.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I think, I think one of the things that we have in common is we both have children and we've both been classroom teachers. And so I'm like, as you're talking, I'm thinking about my experience too of like, how would I answer this question? But I think one of those pivotal moments for me was always at parent conferences when you have like that prime opportunity to sit down for 20 to 30 minutes and just talk specifically about this one child, this one student. And oftentimes you'd get like, as the classroom teacher, you'd get that light bulb moment from the parent of like, oh, this is what is actually happening, or this is like how their behavior is, or this is what, this specific piece on the progress report means. Cause that's like a whole other language that we even use in education. And so I think like the next step is like, okay, well, then what is the actions we're taking together, right? To make sure that we're moving the child along. But oftentimes those parent conferences don't come till like midway through the year. And you're like, what happened to the first whole section of the school year?
I say that a lot. One of the things that I like about platforms like Seesaw,
Mm-hmm.
right, is that it gives you this window into your child's education in real time all the time, right? It's not just the worksheet that they got a bad grade on. It's not just a progress report that you found balled up under their bed because they didn't show it to you. And now you're 6 weeks behind knowing that they needed help or that they needed support. It's a lot of schools, or at least in my experience, sometimes it was parent night is to show the things that you're working on, but let's not dive in and have these hard conversations. Other people might hear, there's all these other things around it. So being able to be super involved in my experience has been that a lot of, and we say parents all the time. I'd like to make sure that we say family engagement. Someone's village, right? It might be sister that's in college. Mom or dad work night shift and they sleep during the day. They're not super involved. So platforms like ours, you can add grandma and grandpa and that live 2 states away, and they get to celebrate what they did in school that day and encourage them and build that network. Some students don't have any of that. So maybe it's the teacher from first grade that they had a great connection with that is so good that you can just, as long as you get approval, you add that person to their profile and they can celebrate, they can engage, right? So it's just making sure that the student is supported in some form or fashion by someone that can step in and make that connection. But my experience is families that are less engaged, sometimes the root of that is that the parents didn't have a good experience at school. They didn't connect with teachers. They fell through the cracks. They didn't. So finding a way, no matter what that platform is or what that communication looks like, to meet them where they are and coach them through that. You don't have to wait for the report card. Call me. Let's meet. Let's do a video chat. Let's do, I don't mind hopping on once a month after hours to just say hi and connect so that you know what's going on. Make sure I have a good phone number. Text me if you need to. You know what I mean? Those types of things, just to make sure that they have these little incremental pieces to start building that relationship.
I think you mentioned and kind of touched on this a little bit just then, but oftentimes there's a lot of barriers that kind of inhibit a parent or family's ability to, stay engaged for the long term, like demands of like balancing work, or maybe they're in school getting their undergrad or master's degree or something, or just general family responsibilities. Like I have 6 children, like it goes across the board of where do I divide my attention and at what point. And so, some of those barriers you kind of help alleviate with Seesaw, which is that they can access it whenever they can, right? Like if that's 2 a.m. when you get off work, you can still look and see what your child did today or leave them a note on a sticky note or something for the morning when they're ready for school. So the idea of learning doesn't stop within the school day. It's really about breaking down those barriers and making this part of the conversation around, daily life. Like just as you talk about what happens at work, your child should be encouraged to talk about things that are happening at school, and you guys can both kind of support each other. Like, oh yeah, go mom on your big project that you did or your presentation. I did my, speech on Thursday. So when it comes to these barriers that parents often face, what other like specific ones have you noticed? Or maybe you could tell us a story about a way that Seesaw has been involved in that, or ways that you've kind of overcome that as an educator.
Sure. So, I think time is always going to be the huge one,
Mhm.
right? I work full time. I'm just lucky that I get to work remote now, right? So I'm here, I'm present, I can kind of navigate my schedule. That's not the situation for most people, right? You have shift work, you have long shifts, you have divided households, right? So step parents and, parents where they live full time. You've got grandparents that I mentioned before that may be the caregiver, right? And so, like so many parents, even I have felt the guilt of not being able to do it all, right? Especially to your point, you've got three, two of them have events at the same time on the same day. How do you choose which one? Who's going to go and support? I was lucky. My dad would go, my mom would go, right? My husband, somebody would step in and do that. Not everybody has that village. So at that point, I had to redefine, the more kids I had, what involvement looked like. Where could I be and navigate being at work? Because also I was a teacher. I was a cheer sponsor. I was an NHS advisor, right? So I had my own things that I had to do. And so redefining what involvement looks like, it doesn't always mean you have to volunteer at school and be part of the PTA. It can mean just asking meaningful questions at dinner. How many times have one of your kids walked in and you said, "What'd you do today?" "Nothing." "Really? Nothing?" The value of seesaw, and I'll be honest with you too. You see that a lot on Facebook. Parents take what their students say as Bible, right? That's what they said. They didn't do anything today. All they gave them was a worksheet. They did nothing. They did whatever. The value of seesaw is you're capturing what happened today. Every parent knows there was communication. I've got an SDR who is a seesaw parent as well, right? So she will tell her parents, "Hey, they're on her child's account. So they get this notification. The theme this month is, astronomy. It's fifth grade. We're learning about planets. We're, you know what I mean, kindergarten, whatever. And we're learning about planets. So now, not only are they can log in and look every day, but now when Joey goes to spend the weekend at Grandma and Grandpa's, they're talking about planets. What'd you learn? What about rockets? What about astronauts? They're having this conversation once a week. You're sitting down, you're reviewing the work that they did, right? And it's not just the worksheet that they completed that was sent home in the folder. It's, "Hey, I saw that you did that thing. I saw that you struggled a little bit. Maybe it was counting 10 blocks." They can video that in Seesaw and they can go 10, 20, 30, and they're stacking the blocks. And so while the kid is saying, "I didn't do anything," because that's normal for them to do stuff at school, didn't seem like anything new, mom knows they did it, but mom also knows they struggled. So that weekend when they're at the playground, she can be like, "Hey, count 10 rocks for me. Now count 20, right? So what's the next number after 20? If you added 10 more rocks, what would that be like?" So now parents are engaged, but the teacher didn't have to do that. The parent just had that window into the classroom. They didn't have to make it homework. They didn't have to assign it. Parents can take that initiative to be involved. And then they can also send a quick message to the teacher. Because I'll tell you this too. Quick story. Side note, my middle child wouldn't talk. And so in Texas, if you have them evaluated before the age of 3, you can have them step in and do these resources. Because I was scared to death. He's not going to talk. He's almost 3. He won't say anything. I am not kidding you. They came to do the evaluation, and every single thing they asked him to say and every single thing they picked up, he said the word and he spoke. Okay. So she said, this is common sometimes with middle kids because you have the older one who and the parents who are now busy, 2 kids in the house. And also by the time he was 3, I had a baby too. So I had 3 at the same time. And she said, they'll point at things and you just grab it and hand it to them. You start to understand that language, right? And so they don't need to talk. You're just being too accommodating by their pointing, their grunting, their whatever. And it's not just you, it's everybody. And so I think too, if you see something that they're doing or not doing at school, you can say, "Wait a minute. They do that at home. I can show you he knows how to do this, but maybe he only makes the relationship because it's related to something that we have in the kitchen that he plays with all the time. So maybe if you gave him apples to stack instead of tigers, he would make the connection. I don't know, but at least now you can have that conversation with the teacher one-on-one. So Seesaw's not just an all, everybody gets the same message. You can directly message one-on-one with the teacher or the parent and have some of those conversations that are confidential, right? And private. So I also personally had to let go of perfection, right? I'm not a perfect parent. I can't be at everything. I'm going to be at what I can be at and be involved as I can. So I think for everybody to know that engagement doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's small, consistent effort. And as long as you're putting in the effort and building that village for your kid, you're going to see that success.
Love that too. And the kind of like problem solving that can happen together when you're able to get a lens into the classroom and the teacher can have, clear communication channels with you. There really is like no barrier there then for that communication. I think too, back to my last year of teaching, and I had an inclusion classroom. So 50% of my students were on IEPs and 504s and 50% were gen ed students. And that was the first year my district had done something to that magnitude. And I was so incredibly excited, but also so nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to manage all of these kind of communication channels and individual education plans. But really, that problem solving piece, that partnership piece of parents and teachers coming together is what really like opens up this channel and takes the weight off of everyone. It's like, okay, I know that this works for you at home. Let me try that in the classroom. This is something that's working in the classroom. Maybe you could try that at home, because it really is about what's best for kids, like that individual child. So,
Well, and you're the advocate for your child, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I was middle school, high school, so numbers are different, right? 7 class periods, 30 something kids in a class. I'm navigating 200 and something kids in a day, right? That I'm trying to communicate with, and I'm trying to make sure. And again, I don't know anybody else's experience, but a lot of times the phone number you get on the registration form doesn't work. You can't get somebody on the phone. They don't know you tried to call, right? Maybe they had to change their phone number. Something happened. And now you can't reach them. But everybody has this app on their phone, right? So they're checking apps, they're getting notifications, they can log in and check these things. But I like that you mentioned the IEP and 504. Another thing I experienced, but this time as a principal, was going into an IEP meeting, or IEP, an ARD meeting is what we called it in Texas, to go over IEPs, 504, what is the progress, what's going on here, right? And teachers coming in without a lot of documentation, right? Trying to show, it was more of a gut feeling. They're not understanding this. They didn't pass this on a test. They didn't, they're not showing enough progress. With stuff like Seesaw, you can make sure that you're doing these enrichment lessons. So even if a student doesn't have a device at home where they can access these after hours, right? You're finding time during centers, during whatever, where they can go in and they can do these lessons. Or you're just showing that the lesson you did in class accommodated that IEP goal or whatever it was, and you can put them into folders. Now, when you go into that IEP, that ARD meeting, the parent has already seen this. They've already engaged with you. They've already seen that the student is still struggling with this goal. You guys have already partnered to do it, but you're going in with the evidence you need to support and show, right? So with us, I always say this all the time. If I had had Seesaw in the classroom, I would have taken some of those standardized questions from the year before, the released questions that you get, I would have dropped them in kind of that benchmark test at the beginning of the year, and been able to see, because what I've always said, and what I feel a lot of people say, is that some people just don't take tests well.
Mhm.
Right? So reading the question, having 5 different choices or 4 different choices, that can be overwhelming and they start to confuse themselves. I've done that before on the teacher exam. Oh gosh, maybe this is the right one. Maybe this one, I'm not real sure. Right. And you start to get nervous and do that. What I like to see is that we present them the question, we give them the option, or the teacher dictates what options they can use. But they can do video, they can do voice, they can type. And I like to see that the student knows the answer. So now I know, am I teaching test taking skills, or am I teaching the concept? Do they truly not understand the concept? And to me, that's a super valuable window to have, especially when you're going in to make a determination about whether this student is getting it or not. I can prove that he can get it, but he gets it when he can tell you what the
Right.
situation. He's not getting it when he has to fill in a bubble and give the answer. That's where he's not showing that he does it. So we say that all the time. One of the valuable things we do is allowing a student to show what they know, right? Whatever means that is.
And the flexibility that technology provides for students to be able to do that now more than probably ever historically we've been able to.
Oh yeah, tons.
The accessibility measures and things have definitely been improved because of the advancements in technology and meeting students where they are, and adults even. We have more assistive technology too, just in life in general.
Right, right. Well, and the thing is too, not just supporting, your SPED students or kids on IEPs and 504. Teachers are expected to teach to every student. You've got 35 students in the classroom. They don't all have the same, abilities, disabilities, whatever. So you might even have some gifted students. They finish their work in 5 minutes. I don't have time to go run some copies of another worksheet or come up with another lesson to fill the next 40 minutes of class time. And I don't want them to just go read a book or play. That's not education. That's not quality education. Now I can go in and I can find them an advanced lesson. I can assign them that. And when they finish that worksheet in 5 minutes, they've got these things that have them doing the critical thinking pieces, the other stuff, and I get to celebrate that, right?
Yeah. The advancements in technology really allow teachers to teach to both ends of the spectrum and everyone else in between, which, I mean, holistically is 100%, right? Like, we're able to differentiate instruction like never before and provide alternative ways to do assessments and to understand student competency and proficiency based learning. I know that those are like other big things that are happening across the state. So, very excited for the future of what we can do to better support kids and make things easier for teachers too, in that sense,
I,
in providing those supports. But, what advice would you give to parents who might feel like maybe disconnected or unsure about how to navigate the challenges in education right now?
tell them to start by asking your child's teacher one question. What is one thing that I can do every week to support my kid?
Love
That
it.
question opens the door and shows teachers, one, that you're committed without overwhelming yourself, right? Time is an issue, work schedule is an issue. I can't be overwhelmed right now, but I want to be involved. Tech wise, you've got tools like Seesaw, Class Dojo, right? Like some people leverage Google Classroom, things like that, that you can check in on assignments, but also like lean into your strengths. Some parents might be better at helping with homework, while others might build just a learning routine, right? It's, hey, do this, do this, do this. Let's make sure it's checked and do this. I'll find somebody that can help with that, right? Because maybe I'm not the best person for that. I was great with my kids until they got geometry. I can't remember all of those
Yeah.
different pieces. I'm searching, using Google, like, how do you do all this with letters and numbers? I can't remember. It's been too long, but I can find those resources for you, right? So lean into your strengths. Maybe it's building a learning routine. Maybe it's just showing up emotionally for support. It's just, I'm here for you. I know you're struggling. I'm going to help. I'm going to work with your teacher. I'm going to find some resources. There truly is no one size fits all, but if you're taking those little steps and you're being proactive, it's going to build over time and you're going to be more comfortable. And that's what I always would lean into with those parents that didn't have a good experience in education. It's having that tough conversation with, I understand you might not have a lot of trust in what we do, because you can feel that. You can feel that animosity in that ARD meeting. The ones that aren't showing up. So school districts can do all the pizza nights in the world. They can do all these things to have people come in, but truly valuing and coaching the parent to be the support for the student, I think is just as valuable for a teacher as it is to teach the student, right? So just having that autonomy and making it accessible, giving them options. And again, like I said, we've said it all day, just meeting them where they are. What is that one little thing that you can do? I'm going to give you that. Check their folder, look at this, shoot me a message every week, and I'm going to tell you this is what we got to work on, you know?
Yes, I love that. Like the little like bite-sized approach too. Like you don't have to eat the whole elephant at once. You don't have to be over the top, room mom, all of the things.
Right.
It really is just about like that little small piece of engagement that really does magnify that impact for your child. I love that you kind of touched on this too, but there's ways that you can outsource some of that support based on your strengths. Like if homework isn't helpful and it's more of like this stressful time as you're trying to help your child with homework, look for other resources that can help you manage that time so you don't have to like sit in that struggle cycle with your child. Like it can be more positive and things like that. There's some new AI tools out there for families like Launch Family. Dailies also supports families with accessing your child's education, supporting you, coaching you through that process. So being able to leverage and like live in your state of just being there and supporting your child, backing them up, advocating for them each day or each week, as you mentioned, into those manageable chunks. But
And
um, yeah,
I would say too that some schools' budget is the issue. Being proactive and going to an organization like your PTO or your PTA organization at school and saying, hey, I saw this great podcast on how good Dailies is or how good Seesaw is or, what that is. You think we could do a fundraiser and raise the money to get that for the year? Because I think it would be so valuable for us to have that insight and have that window into education, right? So there's ways that you can be proactive too within the school to kind of bring the attention to those things. It doesn't have to be Seesaw. It's, it can be any kind of resource of just trying to say, hey, we don't have that. I don't have that insight for my student. I got to advocate for them. I want to see these things. I want to know what's going on instead of just making a judgment call that nothing's happening and the school district is not supporting my kid, right? I want to have that visibility. And so just being proactive and stepping up too, I think is a big part of it.
I think too, on that piece, just to expand a little more, is that if you're feeling that way, there's likely other parents within that school community that are having some of those similar things. And so when you do advocate or you do speak up or ask a question, you open those communication channels to then also break those barriers and bridge those gaps. And being like, this is something that we can, there's so many different providers and services out there to support you at home or you at school as the parent, supporting teachers, of course, as well. Like you mentioned Seesaw too. Like there are solutions out there to help bridge that gap, and finding those things and asking for those through your school is great. If you have to find ways to do that outside of school, there's also options for you to do that too. So,
and free ones.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
Even us, we've got a free version. You can pop in, find some, a few things that you'd like to use and play around before you present it to somebody else. But, there's a few lessons in there you can grab that are already made and, put them in front of your kiddo and see if they can do it.
Yeah. Launch Family is another one that comes to mind because they can help with, creating that after school routine. Like, what should I ask my child about this? Or like, yes, every day that we get off the bus, this is what we do in this order. And like, this is a process. Some people, don't have those kind of organizational systems within their home, and that can also make a huge difference. So, thinking holistically, yes, my child in school, but also what can I do at home to kind of further that conversation and support, I think is really the whole tone and this thread that we've had throughout our conversation so far today.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Well, we're wrapping up our time, and I want to give us some time to just kind of reflect and leave with a lasting note to parents and educators. What would be that one tip for teachers that are maybe trying to engage more of their families, or for parents that may be struggling with this right now?
Sure. I would say you're not alone, and it's okay to feel disengaged. It's okay from both sides. As a parent to feel like you're not getting the communication, or from the teacher side to feel like if there was something else going on at home, maybe it would push this student, to that moment of, understanding this concept. But the school system, everything it's constantly changing. And so I think it's normal to feel a little lost, to not understand, us specifically, not limited to, but focus more on the elementary, population. That can be a lot where, in my mind, the older they get, you start to get a little more disconnected. You give them some more room, you do a little of these things. But if it's your first child coming in to education, just starting kindergarten and you're excited, you want to know, you want to be a part of it, and you want to have this confidence that they're making the progress that they need and that they're not falling behind. So it's normal, I think, to feel a little bit lost. My advice is to, again, like I've said, start small, choose one area. Maybe it's just understanding the grading system. Maybe it's just logging into the school portal and getting comfortable with that piece first and then expand. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because teachers want you to be involved. I promise they want you to be involved. So even if they don't always have the capacity to reach out to you first, reach out to your child's teacher, and don't just do it if they're struggling. We want to celebrate. And that's the good thing about Seesaw, is like in their portfolio piece, we're not just sending messages to parents that say, hey, you failed another test today. Hey, you can't behave. You can't sit still in class today. And I think that's defeating. If that is the only call you ever get from your student's teacher, which sometimes with 200 kids, that's all they have time to do is make that one call to make sure that they're struggling. That's hard. And that's who wants to go to parent night if all you're going to hear is that they're not doing well and they can't and they don't and they, you know what I mean? And that portfolio piece, you can comment. Anybody can comment. Like I said, the village, grandma, grandpa, big sister that's off at college, first grade teacher that I had this great connection with. Maybe it's my support, my, CPS worker, maybe it's my, whatever. But it's whoever that mentor is for me is coming in now on my portfolio and going, oh my gosh, we've been working on this for a week and you nailed it. Like, you got this concept down. I'm so proud of you. They don't have to wait till they get home. They don't have to run and go tell them 2 weeks later when they finally see them. It's right there. It's live. It's a window, and they get to see that accolade right then, and they get to feel that pride, which to me is what's going to motivate them to move forward. So that's my advice. If it's just one little 2-second comment on something that they posted in their portfolio that day, if it's just one message to the teacher that says, I'm so tired, I'm so frustrated, I don't know what to do, I don't know how else to support them, give me some guidance, right? Those are, or sometimes, to be honest, it's just a message to the teacher. I'm seeing this portfolio. You're doing a great job. Thank you for supporting my kid. I think there's value in that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my goodness, Jamie, what an incredible conversation that we've had today. And like some of those practical tips, both for teachers and parents, as we kind of navigate these discussions and engagement around family engagement. I love redefining, we talked about parent engagement, but it is truly family and village engagement overall. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and insights with us. And it's clear that parental involvement, family involvement has a powerful impact, especially in a time when education is evolving constantly in new and exciting ways. We talked about technology a little bit too. For all the parents tuning in, your active participation in your child's education truly can make a world of difference. There's tons of research to support that as well. And Jamie gave us some quick tips for how to take that first step if we are feeling a little hesitant. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Bridging the Education Gap. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with others in your community. Join us next time as we continue to explore how educators and parents can work together to empower every child's learning journey.